Welcome back, and I hope everyone had a wonderful Christmas and a wonderful New Year's. I know mine was riddled with fireworks all night, so that was fun. But anyways, I hope everybody had a wonderful New Year's, and it's exciting that we get to start 2025. Again, thank you so much for everyone's support for last year. I really appreciate the questions and comments, and yeah, I'm so grateful for all of you. So, this week's question comes from Anne. Anne asks, Christian, when I go to bed and just before I fall asleep, I get a terrible, scary thought. I can't sleep today, and at the same moment, I am overcome by a flash of fear. Then my heart starts racing. I'm scared and panicking, and I can't sleep. What do I do? Well, Anne, I'm so sorry that you're dealing with this. First of all, know that you're not alone. Know that everyone, including myself, has gone through this, and it is so frustrating. We're doing the very best we can, and it's very difficult for us to deal with these scary thoughts that come in at night. So let's break this question down into a couple of different sections. The first part is when I go to bed and just before I fall asleep, yeah, they're right there, I get a terrible, scary thought. So thoughts, what do we do with thoughts? We can't control them, right? But what if we reframed what a thought really is? So this is probably months ago. I was dealing with this gentleman who was struggling with insomnia, but his biggest focus was on going to bed, laying in bed, and just before he went to sleep. His focus was very much on what can I think about? I need to make sure that I think about good thoughts, happy thoughts, positive thoughts, so that they don't rile me up, so I don't feel anxious, so I don't feel scared. So there was a lot of pressure every night for him to figure out a way to think of something that would be soothing or calming or comforting, whatever it is. And so I remember one night I was laying in bed thinking, how can I help him? What kind of suggestions can I make to help him along, this portion of the journey that he's really struggling with? So I was laying in bed and I thought, okay, so thoughts, the focus is on thoughts. So first of all, since I know we cannot control our thoughts, and the more we try and push them away, the more the brain is going to see those thoughts as a problem, a threat, a danger. And so we want to avoid doing that. So what can we do? How can we handle our thoughts and not have any of the scariness kind of come to us in the middle of the night and just create a bunch of havoc or chaos and make it more difficult for us to sleep? So I remember laying in bed and I thought about, okay, so if thoughts can't hurt us, good ones, bad ones, scary ones, whatever, they're just thoughts. So Daniel, I know, has spoken about how thoughts, no matter how scary or whatever they are, they cannot hurt us. So if we can see that thoughts cannot hurt us, well, then there's no threat, there's no danger, there's nothing that we have to do. But still, how do we manage this? How do we do this? And so I remember laying in bed and I thought, okay, I'm going to lay in bed and I'm going to allow my brain to just think of whatever it wants to. It's free to think about whatever it wants because it's safe. So I thought about my brain as being like a playground. And this playground was completely safe where all my thoughts could be welcome. They could come in, they could play good thoughts, bad thoughts, scary thoughts, silly thoughts, whatever, all the thoughts. And I remember just laying there, just going, okay, come on, let's just brain. It's this, the floor is yours. Do whatever you want, And I remember very clearly getting these images of race cars and cars just going around the track and racing. And I thought, this is insane. This is ridiculous. Why? Because I don't know anything about race cars. I've never watched a race. I couldn't tell you anything about race cars. And so I paused at that moment. I thought, there you go. What's the meaning of this? There is no meaning. There's nothing. And so I didn't have to think about why I was thinking about race cars, it didn't matter. There was no threat. Now, if I were to see race cars as something that had a deep meaning or purpose, then now I can find myself in a bit of a struggle trying to figure out the root cause of why I'm thinking about race cars. When in reality, it's just the brain thinking about whatever it needs to think about. So in this case, what do I do with these thoughts? You don't have to do anything with it. We just know and recognize that the brain is just going to think about whatever. It's all welcome. We're all safe. So that's what I would say, first and foremost, about thoughts in general. And what I found really interesting is I fell asleep right away. And so there are times when I'm, maybe it's late in the evening and I'm watching TV and I'm laying down in bed and all of a sudden I start thinking about something and I start engaging in those thoughts, things I have to do the next day or whatever it is. I go back to this and I go, okay, brain, think whatever you want. It's safe. It doesn't matter. And I notice that my anxiety or my hyperarousal or my focus or attention to the thoughts really tends to fade. It doesn't really matter. And I tend to fall asleep pretty quickly. And so in the process, I'm trying to help somebody in their insomnia. This was really helpful for me too. And it really strengthened this understanding that thoughts cannot hurt you. And it doesn't matter what you think about. It's so much of the response that we have towards these thoughts. So let's go back to this question again. It says, when I go to bed, before I go to sleep, I get a terrible, scary thought. Okay, scary thought. I can't sleep today. That's the thought. I can't sleep today. And at the same moment, I'm overcome by a flash of fear. Of course, you're overcome with a flash of fear. Your thoughts are that you're not going to sleep. And that is scary because what we're trying to do is go to sleep. So when we have these scary thoughts, first realize the thoughts are thoughts that can't hurt us. Number two, realize that anytime we have scary thoughts, that our brain is doing its job. What's it doing? It's catastrophizing. Why? Because it wants us to prepare for the worst case scenario. It wants us to fix a problem. And so now we're in control. So now we get this information from the brain, and the brain is like, oh, scary thought, you're not going to sleep tonight. How can we respond to it? Well, why don't we say, hey, brain, I understand you're catastrophizing right now, but in reality, we're safe. There's nothing that I have to do. And it's only scary because you're trying to fix something that I can't control. And the more I try and control something that I can't, the more vulnerable, anxious, or scared I'm going to feel. So why don't I reframe and I think about this? Scary thoughts coming in. I'm not going to sleep tonight. Brain, you're catastrophizing. Okay. And I'm going to reframe things. I'm not going to focus on whether I sleep or not because I can't control that. But I am going to focus on how I respond. And how I respond can be, I'm going to choose to rest because I can control when I rest. I can do that. Or I can control what to do with my time. Befriending wakefulness, right? We can watch TV, read a book, play on our phone, whatever it is. And so that can really be helpful when we're like in the struggle and we're dealing with these heavy thoughts. And then the last part says, then my heart starts racing. I'm scared and panicking and I can't sleep. Right? We've allowed this thought that the brain has created that you're not going to go to sleep. We may believe that it is. And so now we're trying to prepare and brace for it. So now we start feeling anxious, hyper-aroused. Our heart starts to race. I'm scared or panicked. What to do? So let's go back to what we went over. Number one, thoughts. It doesn't matter, good or bad. Let's go back for a second with his thoughts. We place judgment on our thoughts. We categorize them as good or bad or whatever, or funny or silly or pointless. Notice that is a response. That's our response. So if something scary comes along our way, we can categorize it as being real or perceived. And we can let our brain know that if we're having scary thoughts, are these real thoughts? They're perceived because the brain can't tell the future. It can't. If it did, we'd all be lottery winners, right? So if we can't predict the future, then these thoughts have no meaning. It's all just perceived. It's all in our head. So we can let ourselves know that we can't predict the future. The brain is doing its job. And thoughts, they can just exist. We're completely safe, regardless of what the thoughts are. Think back at that playground. Think back that your brain is this playground. All the thoughts can exist and be there, and there's nothing that you have to do about it. So try and work on that. Listen, I know, I understand this. Everything that we talk about is so much easier said than done. This is a muscle. Imagine going to work out and you have never worked out in your life. It's going to take time to build this muscle. But as you're consistent and you keep practicing and working on it, you start to build strength. And that doesn't mean you're going to be superhuman in a short period of time, but that means we're going to start bringing the level of pressure down. And so instead of feeling intensity at a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, maybe now it's at an 8. Maybe in a couple of days or a couple of weeks, it goes down to a 7 or a 6 or a 5. And so as we start practicing these things and seeing that we are safe, we start to take control and of the things that we can control, like how we respond, how we perceive our thoughts. They can't hurt us. They can't. What's been really helpful in my case is when I started practicing this, during the day, if something would come up, whatever, work-related, relationship-related, something would come up and I'd feel anxious or worried or concerned, I would implement the same concepts. Oh, I'm catastrophizing. These are just thoughts. What can I do to look at these thoughts and what are the things that I can control? I can always control how I respond. And so the more we put ourselves from a position of things that we cannot control and reframe things to a position where we can control, we'll feel less fear, less anxiety. So, and let's go back to the question one more time. When I go to bed, just before I fall asleep, I get a terrible, scary thought. Brain, we're safe. Thoughts are thoughts. They can't hurt us. I can't sleep today. At the same moment, I'm overcome by a flash of fear. Your brain is just catastrophizing. It doesn't know the future. So we really don't have to think about this as anything real. My brain is just trying to protect me. That's all it's doing. So once again, there's nothing for us to do here. But what I can do is, let's see, and then my brain starts racing. I'm scared and panicked, right? So now we've perceived this thought as real. We've engaged with the thought. Now we're thinking about it. And now somehow it's a reality. And we're so wound up. When this just came out of nowhere. We don't know what's going to happen. You can think back to times in your insomnia when you thought you weren't going to sleep or you were anxious. This happened to me many times. I've had days where I was anxious all day long. It was dark and cloudy and it was raining and I was thinking about the night and I wasn't going to go to sleep and I was so anxious and I slept well that night. And there was other days when everything was beautiful, right? It was sunny, the sun was out, beautiful weather. I went to the park with my wife, went on a walk, it was beautiful. Dinner was wonderful. Everything was great. I wasn't anxious. That night I didn't sleep. So really we have no idea what's going to happen that night. So the more we come in neutral and just say, something, we really don't have to look at any of these thoughts as reality. They're just thoughts. And of course I'm a little scared. Why? Because I would prefer to be asleep. But the less we start thinking about trying to control, the more we start reframing and saying, thoughts can't hurt us. Scary thoughts tend to create enough pressure for us to respond or do something about it. We don't have to do anything. We're completely safe. We're all right. And if we're struggling when we can't sleep, remember, we can't control how we respond. We can rest. We can befriend wakefulness. So, and I hope this was helpful. Thank you again for posting your comments and your questions. And I will go ahead and continue to go through, and hopefully I can respond to questions that that all of you are struggling with. Until then, be patient, be kind. This journey of insomnia can be difficult, but there is a way out of it. Information, knowledge, understanding what's going on can be so helpful. Until then, be kind, be patient. Have a wonderful week. Take care.
They say that the best things in life are free. And I truly hope that this free video helps you rediscover something else that is free, which is peaceful sleep. If you do find our content here helpful, then please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share it with people, because the more views we get, the more people we reach, the more chances of changing lives we have. The thing is, leaving insomnia for good is actually so simple. You can and will rediscover a beautiful life at the end of this sleepless tunnel. So yes, please share it with people, hit the subscribe button, and you will be a big part of leading the change that we so want to see in the sleep universe. Thank you.